Hello and welcome back into another episode of the Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Pearson Fowler, and with me, as always, from GamecockCentral.com to discuss South Carolina's 86-80 loss to LSU is Collyn Taylor. And Collyn, this was a game that was kind of the exact opposite of that Tennessee game for South Carolina and more closely followed the basketball truism that basketball is a game of runs. And unfortunately, LSU had a few too many runs for South Carolina. Carolina falls to 8-6, 16-11 overall, and despite the fact that 4-2 in the last 6 is still on the table for Carolina, it seems like a lot of the fans have jumped ship, maybe just because they were down by like 19 in the second half and the general performance is underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why fans would. If I was a fan, I wouldn't, just because there is a lot ahead of you in that. But yeah, this was just one of those things where they got caught up in a perfect storm. LSU was losers of, I think, 4 of their last 5. Mm-hmm. They're probably a little bit pissed off, and you were going to get their best shot. And they did, and South Carolina just wasn't really equipped to handle it. And let's not forget, LSU's a pretty good team. Like, this wasn't like, you know, Vanderbilt coming in here and boat racing you by 19 and you having to come back to make it a game. This was a tournament team coming in there, and I understand why fans are frustrated because you had 2 golden opportunities to notch quad 1 wins. But there's still a lot to play for on the table. All of these games are winnable down the stretch. And if you win the next 4 and have some success in the tournament, you're in a decent spot.
This is why I like doing the podcast with you, because inside of 90 seconds, where you mentioned something that if you didn't mention, I was going to mention, and we were both going to agree on, LSU's really good.
Yeah, they're really good.
There's a reason there's a top 30 net team. There's a reason they've been ranked as highly as they have this year. And there's a reason that they're a top 30 net team despite losing 4 of their last 5.
Yeah.
You know, they have some bad losses in there. They lost to Vanderbilt. Not that Alabama is a bad loss, and I'm pretty sure that game was in Tuscaloosa. And Alabama they can score some points. But that's a good team. That's a really good team.
They're second in the conference.
Right. And let's just go ahead and jump in to this part of it, because I think this has been an interesting part of the conversation. South Carolina gave up 86 points at home. Not a good defensive performance.
No.
Frank Martin was like, yeah, not a good defensive performance. Everyone was like, yeah, not a good defensive performance. I think I saw this either in your instant analysis or what we learned. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a good defensive performance from South Carolina, but LSU was averaging 114 points per 100 possessions coming into that game on the season, and I think I saw that they only scored
112.
They were below average.
Yeah.
Carolina held LSU to a below average game of offensive efficiency.
Marginally, but yeah, better.
But it's not like it was a horrendous game. I mean, the goal of defense is to keep the other team from being as good as they typically are on offense. South Carolina did that. Maybe you could say it was only marginally, but the point is, LSU's a really, 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 really good offensive team. We saw why on Saturday. I feel like that reflects more on LSU than it does on South Carolina.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that you're not going to really do anything when a team that came in shooting like 31% from 3 goes out there and shoots 40. That's really, really hard. And Darius Days, who came in shooting 27.9% from 3, goes 4 of 6. That's just, you're not going to be able to defend that. And so sometimes you just catch the wrong team on the wrong night for you. That team gets hot, and there's really not a whole lot you can do. And could they have played better defensively? Absolutely. But to say that this wasn't a sister of the poor South Carolina was playing, this was a very, very good LSU team that will be playing in March. And you hung in there, you lulled in the middle of the second half, but you came back and you had, like Frank Martin said, a fighter's chance late to win that.
That's the other part of this that I think is kind of interesting. The fact that there was a fighter's chance at the end. And it's 2 games now that have followed this pattern. And I understand the conventional thinking. And in a lot of ways, I think it's correct. South Carolina was down by 12, I think, with 2.5 minutes to go against Mississippi State. And they were down by 19 with 7 minutes to go. And LSU took their foot off the gas a little bit, and South Carolina was able to get back into it. But there are 2 parts to this. One, the South Carolina team showed enough fight that they weren't going to just roll over and let the 12-point deficit against Mississippi State turn into 20, or the 19-point deficit against LSU turn into 29. They fought back. This team has shown grit. They've shown toughness. They've been resilient, even obviously in the games that they've won, where they've had to endure second half runs or go on second half runs. This team showed a lot of mental toughness. They did it again against LSU, as they did against Mississippi State. And some people say that's empty stats, and I feel like I would normally say that. But I just feel like it's important that the team still believes, that the team still fights, because as much as, like I said earlier, it seems like a lot of the fan base has gone ahead and sold all their stock for the men's 1920 basketball season, 2019-2020. We're not doing a history lesson here. But the team still believes. The team still fights. The team still wants it. They were obviously closer to sort of finishing off that comeback against Mississippi State than they were against LSU, but it was 84-80 with, 30 seconds left?
Yeah.
15 seconds left, something like that. I mean, that's crazy, and they had to make some ridiculous shots, and Jair Bolden making that,
step back, fade away,
off balance. I don't even know what you call that. Other
prayer?
Than a true prayer.
Yeah.
He made it, and Carolina got some shots to go. They got some stops on defense. I think there is value to the team showing fight, and yes, LSU was more than 6 points better than South Carolina on Saturday, but also Carolina deserved to only lose the game by 6 because of how they finished. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. To Frank Martin, it certainly doesn't. He thinks in terms of wins and losses, and I think that's correct. But I think you and I can sit here and talk about the margins a little bit more and say, I think that means something.
Yeah, I think that's why South Carolina only dropped
one
in the net rankings.
As of yesterday. I haven't looked this morning.
Yeah, I'll look this morning. Don't worry. That's why they only dropped a certain amount, because they know LSU's good. Winning obviously helps your case, but the fact that you were only able to losing by 6 and losing by 19 does have an impact on your net.
Yep, your efficiency a little bit, making some shots at the end.
So, yeah, they're 63rd right now, and they were 62nd after Mississippi State. So, you lose 2 games over the course of a week, and you drop 1 spot in the net. There's still a lot to play for there. If my math is correct, from the net rankings on Tuesday, or on Monday, this is Tuesday, the net rankings on Monday, you win out, you get a quad 1 win against Alabama, you get a quad 2 win against Mississippi State, and you get
two quad 3 wins.
2 quad 3 wins with those at home or the home game against Georgia and at Vanderbilt. That's good. South Carolina right now has 4 quad 1 wins, because Clemson has moved up to a quad 1 win.
There you go.
So you have
Tigers.
You have 4. Let's put this into perspective. You have 4 quad 1 wins.
Mm-hmm.
3 of those quad 1 wins have been on the road. That's a good resume.
Significant.
Yeah, that's a good resume. The Boston and Stetson losses obviously come back to haunt you, because instead of being 16-11, they're 18-9, and they probably only need to go 2-2 with the win of the tournament.
Golly.
Yeah, with no bad losses. That's frustrating for South Carolina. I understand why fans would be frustrated with that, because they should be comfortably sitting as a 7 seed or an 8 seed right now, but they're not. And I get it. I understand why you're frustrated, but there's still a lot to be played for. And there's still a chance if South Carolina, weirder things have happened where a team goes on a 6-game win streak to end the year. Let's say they go and they, win their last 4 and then win 2 in the tournament. That's a 6-game. You've won 6 of your last 7 to end the year, and you've played in the quarterfinals or the semifinals of the SEC tournament. Because there's still an odd chance. I was fiddling with it last night, where they could get a top 4 seed if they win out, if all the right stuff happens.
Yeah, that's tough not having the tiebreakers with Florida, LSU, or Auburn. I guess they do have it with Kentucky. It would probably require Kentucky to lose to Florida and then lose another game.
Yeah, you need a few teams to lose right now.
I guess Kentucky's only got 2 conference losses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Carolina's not going to catch them.
No, but if weird things happen, you could potentially get a top 4 seed. Will it? Probably not. You're probably playing on, what's that?
Thursday. Yeah. And that may be better, again, for Carolina. More winnable opponent. Got to get to 20 or 21.
Yeah, Frank said it, and I tend to agree with him. You still need good wins. You always want good wins. But right now, they just need to win games.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to win games. They have you can look at it and say, okay, we got quality wins, but you need to win games now to make up for your 2 bad losses. And that comes these next 4 games.
Just win. That starts Wednesday night against Georgia. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. As we dig a little deeper into this LSU game, I started a movement with Wes and Chris on another Carolina podcast. I don't know. I guess I just like to be a little bit of a trendsetter. I decided that since everybody signs during the early signing period, that should be National Signing Day. And what is currently or formerly, if my influence has worked as much as I hope it has, what was formerly the National Signing Day, we should exclusively refer to as late signing period, because that's kind of how it is. So you and I I think, agreed that it's kind of silly that college basketball has halves, considering church league basketball has quarters.
I like halves.
High school. Well, you like halves?
I like
Have we
halves.
talked about this?
We might.
I just assumed. Damn it.
No, see, I don't like quarters. I think the flow gets interrupted.
Yeah,
a little bit.
but church basketball is quarters. High school
I
basketball
understand
is
why you
quarters.
do it.
Women's college basketball is quarters. NBA is quarters. WNBA is quarters.
halves.
Everything is quarters
I like
except
halves.
for men's college basketball. All right,
like
well, then you're not going to agree with me on this, but
No.
I was going to say we need to talk about the game in terms of quarters because
can.
the difference in
That's
the Carolina,
easy.
the difference in the Carolina LSU game was the third quarter.
Yeah.
LSU absolutely just buried South Carolina, and it looked like they had after that. I guess it was the big dunk on the baseline. One of the, oh my gosh, like, feel it in your chest kind of dunk that Keyshawn Bryant had with 15 minutes to go or whatever it was. That felt like the moment that would have sparked the run for South Carolina, and then LSU responded in kind of the same way that we've seen Carolina respond in a lot of those games earlier this year, and just absolutely bury the Gamecocks. And that was the story of the game. Carolina played pretty well in the second half. They had it down to 2, and then LSU hits a 3, and then you have a bad turnover.
They outscored LSU by, I'm looking at the math here, 1 in the second half.
Yeah. Now, again, some of that's late. Carolina won the fourth quarter. I guess
By
remember
7
the
points.
exact final score of the first and second quarters. But the point is, it was close. It was essentially a 2-point game in the first half. Carolina had a bad turnover, and LSU hit a 3 to make it a 7-point halftime
The end of
score,
that,
which still,
I'd say the end of that half was brutal for South Carolina.
it was a mess. Now, that was what, like AJ threw it to Wildens or Jermaine threw it to Wildens, and Wildens wasn't looking for it, and that was just an easy transition bucket. It was ugly. But point is, for the most part, Carolina played well enough. They played well enough for 30 out of 40 minutes to be in the game at the end.
Yeah.
And they were, kind of, but not really. They would have been more organically in the end if they hadn't just gotten buried in the third quarter. But that's what really good offensive teams do.
They turn it on. So Ken Palm actually does break it down by quarters.
Oh, good.
So South Carolina and LSU tied the first quarter. It was 24-24 at the end of the first quarter. LSU outscored South Carolina by 7 to end the half, which makes sense because it was a 7-point game at halftime.
Right. So they won the middle of the game significantly.
Yeah. Oh, and then they outscored South Carolina by 6 in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm. And then Carolina outscored them by 7 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So second and fourth quarter cancel each other out. First quarter was even. The difference is that third quarter.
Yeah. Where South Carolina's had some trouble this year. When they win games, it's because they dominate that stretch. And then they can kind of coast. Or outside of the Georgia game, where they just dominate the first half, and then they can kind of coast in the second. So, yeah, South Carolina obviously needs to play, and that's been a problem all year, consistency. With a young team, that's what you get. And I know people hate hearing, well, they're just a young team. Ew, I'm tired of hearing about them being a young team. This is a young team. Jermaine Couisnard, freshman, although, he's redshirt, but he didn't do that much last year. He was scout team. A.J. Lawson's a true sophomore. Trey Hannibal's a true freshman. T.J. Moss is a redshirt freshman. Jair Bolden's in his first real season under Frank because, like Jermaine, he was on scout team a lot last year, didn't get really the flow of preparing. That's 6 guards right there that are second year or younger. Keyshawn Bryant, too. And then Justin Minaya has been hurt, and I know this sounds like excuses, but what I'm trying to do is paint a picture of why there is inconsistency. And I know teams, it's hard to have a senior-laden team when you don't have younger freshman and sophomore-laden teams. And that's what they are right now.
Right. And we see that. A lot of the Carolina didn't turn the ball over a lot, but it felt like the turnovers were costly and avoidable. They turned the ball over 11 times. It felt, they played the kind of game that you feel like they could have and maybe should have just turned it over 5 times, because at least like 5 or 6 of those that I can just think of off the top of my head were like, oh wow, like you just threw that out of bounds, or you just threw that to Wildens and Wildens wasn't looking and just dropped it.
Or just a lazy pass on the perimeter that leads to run outs, and it was pretty bad for them.
That's I guess that's the kind of stuff that you get with a team like that. But what I guess what's weird about Saturday's game is, as much as we've been talking about Keyshawn needing to pick up the slack, he finally did. He had 15 points, 10 rebounds. I haven't looked, but I don't have to look. I'm sure that's his first double-double of the season. He played well. He had a huge dunk, had a huge alley-oop opportunity where I thought he was actually going to knock Trey Hannibal out of the game. Poor Trey Hannibal. Also, get out of the way next time, Trey Hannibal. Maybe that would have...
Trey didn't have a great game.
Now, I don't think that would have necessarily made a difference, but if I told you that Keyshawn had a 15 and 10, you would have said, all right, that's kind of what Carolina's been missing in Justin Minaya's absence. Couisnard, not very efficient, actually not efficient at all, 4 of 16, but he got to nearly his average. AJ, also not particularly efficient, but he was able to score 13. It's like, okay, that's here. And at the end of the day, you score 80 points. You shoot 36% from three. You get to the free throw line 25 times, which is above average for South Carolina. You hit about
15.
what they normally hit, which is 60%. You grab 20 offensive rebounds. You turn the ball over just 11 times. 8 steals, 5 blocks, and you lose.
Because
Score 80 points at home.
Because LSU is a good team.
Because they're a really good team.
And shot 40% from three and took 23 of them and hit 9. That's going to happen sometimes. That was a good basketball game. And LSU put on a clinic.
What feels like the missed opportunity is that this is an LSU team that's not good defensively. They're like, worse in the SEC in defensive efficiency? One of the worst?
Vanderbilt's the worst.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They shouldn't
forget about Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they shouldn't even be in the conference this year. Although I guess they did beat LSU. So maybe I should
That was probably the
retract my
weirdest
statement.
win in the SEC this year. I get it was at Vanderbilt, but...
And that was LSU's first loss of the season, too. It's not like they were slumping and then they went into Vanderbilt and bleh. But it was just like...
Yeah, they were
LSU was on top of the world at that point.
Yeah, they were undefeated in conference play. Had wins over Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Florida, Alabama. Then they beat Ole Miss, and then they go to Vanderbilt and lose.
And give up 99 points.
Yes.
So on the one hand, you look at it and you say 80 points. That's great. You should win most games that you score 80 points. But what's disappointing is all the points left on the floor for South Carolina. 37.3% from the field against not a very good defensive team. Right. And what Frank Martin said after the game, I think, really kind of mirrored what it felt like watching the game, which is that South Carolina just wasn't aggressive enough.
No, they took some really bad shots.
They took a lot of bad shots, a lot of off-balance leaners and floaters and runners and not getting all the way to the rack. Things that you feel like they could do and things that it feels like we've seen them do. Like I feel like we've seen Jermaine Couisnard go a lot harder to the hole than he did on Saturday. He was settling for so many of those little, he just flipping it up from 6-7 feet. And I don't understand why. It's not like LSU has the SEC Defensive Player of the Year patrolling the basket, deterring guys from driving in. But there was just a lack of edge, a lack of aggression. And frankly, we've seen that from Carolina a lot this year. It's kind of disappeared in the last couple games, and I don't exactly know why.
They were decently aggressive against Mississippi State. The problem is that, and Frank's talked about it and use it as an excuse as if you want, but they got home at 3 a.m. from Starkville because of that stupid 9 p.m. tip Eastern. Then Thursday, with all these guys having to go to class at 8 a.m. or whatever, because these guys' schedules are so front-loaded because they practice in the afternoon, then they couldn't really do a whole lot Thursday. So you're really only preparing for one day against LSU on Friday, and then you got shoot-around Saturday morning. But guys are tired,
And there's not as much time to fix what Frank saw wrong with the Mississippi State game. He said as much after the game.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of time. You can only do so much in one practice, because then you also have to game plan and insert stuff for that. And it was tough. Guys were tired, and they were on short rest, and boom, boom, boom. Because LSU played, I want to say Tuesday.
Yeah, they played Kentucky on Tuesday.
Yeah, so LSU got Wednesday off and then had Thursday and Friday to prepare.
Everyone has to do that, though, right? I mean, it's this point of the season. The season's long.
Yeah.
You got to travel. That's...
Yeah, and they need to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Frank will be the first one to tell you that. But I'm just pointing out that this was a very awful scheduling thing for South Carolina in the biggest game of the year so far, where it was like they only got essentially one full day of practice because Thursdays was kind of a wash.
Yeah. I still can't, and I'm not saying that you are, but I can't call it a schedule loss because
no.
LSU's just really good.
And absolutely.
Carolina wasn't good enough, which, again, I still think this game says more about LSU than it does about South Carolina, and it doesn't overly change my opinion of this team or what I think the realistic end goals for this team are. We talked about it, and we'll continue to talk about it. It's still kind of all right there on the table. And you can say, look, Carolina's not going to win 4 in a row. They haven't won 4 in a row yet this year. But can Carolina beat Georgia? Yes. Can Carolina beat Alabama? Yes. Can Carolina beat Mississippi State? Yes. Can Carolina beat Vanderbilt? Yes. Okay. Well, there you go. Now you're having a different conversation. But it's easier to be fatalistic about it, I guess, when you sort of put it in terms of the totality of, you have to win 4 in a row. You haven't done that yet. What are the odds that that's going to happen? You know what? Honestly, not great. Carolina's been inconsistent. If they go on the road and lose to Alabama, not at all surprised. If they was at home against Mississippi State, not at all surprised. Frankly, I wouldn't even be that surprised if South Carolina lost to Georgia on Wednesday.
No.
Because Anthony Edwards probably remembers that he went just 4 of 13 against Carolina last time, and he might have a little bit of extra juice, a little bit of something extra to prove.
And Georgia's playing decent. They just beat Auburn. They went on the road and beat Vanderbilt in a weird place to play. And Anthony Edwards, I think, had 2 really good games. So Edwards, we'll talk more about it, had 18 against Auburn. And if my site will load, 19 against Vanderbilt.
And right now seems to be the kind of consensus number 1 pick in the draft.
Yep.
And it's his to lose at this point, which is weird, and I think speaks more to this upcoming NBA draft than anything else. Cause,
so bad.
Yeah, not a good draft. But point is, would I be surprised if Carolina lost any of these games? No. Would I be surprised if South Carolina went 4-0? No, because they can win all of those games. We've seen them play well enough to win all those games. Now, it needs to be better than it was in the second half against Mississippi State, and it needs to be better than it was in the second half against LSU. But it feels like it's there. You know, if AJ and Jermaine have, you know, slightly more efficient games.
Yeah.
If Carolina shoots 40% from the field as a team instead of 37, which is still below average for them, we're having a different conversation right now. And the timing of the baskets is huge too. Again, that third quarter for LSU, yeah, they scored a lot, but it felt like every single shot that they made, every single three that they made in that stretch was a dagger. And timing and context is important in everything, and especially in basketball games, especially when it's a game like this that's a game of runs. You know, for South Carolina, I wrote down a couple of these because I thought it was interesting because LSU kept jumping out the leads and Carolina would claw back, and then they would, you know, take another lead and then claw back, and so on and so forth. LSU was up 24-17 early. Carolina got that back to 24-24. Then LSU went on another run and got it to 31-24. Carolina got back to 31-30. And then it was 39-29, and Carolina got that back to 39-37. That kept happening until LSU finally went on one run that South Carolina couldn't match. And it's about timing. And also, like, when you get down that many times, like, I guess it's hard to keep doing that. But that's a really good team.
Yeah. And you saw it both days is that they kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing, and then they just couldn't get over that hump. And against Mississippi State, they were able to kind of claw back and be in it more late. And LSU, who's a better team than Mississippi State, was able to just put their foot on the pedal and do what good teams do and go on runs. And you've seen that from South Carolina at times this year. Sometimes you're just on the bad end of one.
We talked about Keyshawn Bryant. Anything else you want to say about him other than that dunk was awesome and the alley-oop would have been awesome, and it was nice for him to, I mean, kind of have a bounce-back game. He got the stats. He didn't 5 of 14, not very efficient, but and only made 5 of his 9 free throws. But
you need that from him. You need 15 and 8 from him.
Yeah,
12 and 7.
You just need to hope it's not on 15 shots every time or 14 shots or whatever it was.
But
the turnovers were down too, which is good.
Yeah, you need points. You need those plays, the firework plays, and you need good defense. And he gave you some of that.
Those explosive plays, as like highlight reel, dunk, whatever. Sometimes it's funny. I feel like he definitely leads the team in like, wow, that was awesome. Although this year, as underwhelming as his season has been, Trey Hannibal is like pretty close to him in terms of just like, exciting athletic plays that get the crowd on their feet. But Keyshawn still has that title, but it's a slim margin.
Yeah. The crowd gets into it when you see Trey in the open court, but people hold their breath when you see Keyshawn. Like when he caught that ball in the corner and he took 3 steps and everyone was
like, they did, I don't know what they were doing. I guess they missed a rotation.
Yeah, they like sagged off of him and he had every ample opportunity to just build up ahead of steam and he took it.
It was incredible.
People held their breath. It was one of those where it was like, and you let go after that. But with Trey, it's just a different level of excitement.
Right, yeah, it's different because maybe it's like a little more spontaneous because you never know when he's going to pick someone's pocket, and then you never know how exactly he's going to finish once he gets to the rim, but he generally does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
For Keyshawn, though, while I give him credit, and there's a lot of value to that. That's what I was going to say, and that's sort of my point in this. Those big explosive plays are worth more. A big dunk is worth more than 2 points. It's worth more than the appearance on SportsCenter or the video going semi-viral on Twitter. It's worth it because it energizes your team. It energizes the crowd. It deflates the other team. There is a real value in a dunk like that isn't really replicable in any other way in basketball other than maybe what we've seen recently with the advent of the really ridiculously long three, whether it's, Trae Young, Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, like that kind of shit. When you pull up from the hash, it's like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Like, that's similarly deflating to a big dunk, but for the most part, it's still kind of a big dunk and a big dunk alone. There is a lot of value in that. And so I love when Keyshawn tries to dunk, although a lot of them have been blocked or he's missed a lot of them this year. But that has also led to him, while he leads the team in highlight plays, he also leads the team by a much wider margin, just based on my eye test. And just like wildly out of control drives where he's like, oh, I'm going to dunk over 5 people. Oh, wait, I can't. And now I've just thrown up like a shot that bounced off the front of the rim or just gotten it blocked or stolen out from underneath me. And you can feel him pressing. And we've talked about this a lot. And I think as much as he played better and he got to his stats and he did have some exciting plays, I found myself more concerned by all the plays
he left
Saturday that he left on the table, where it's like, okay, you have 3 guys around you. Don't it's cool. And if you were to dunk on all 3 of these guys, it would be amazing. But just like pass out of that. Make the simple play sometimes.
And that's what his next step is. I mean, with AJ or with Keyshawn, it's all, but now it's like, okay, well, now it's time for you to function in the offense instead of us rotating the ball and finding you backside for a breakaway dunk. Like, that's just not, or a backside cut dunk, whatever. That's just not, he needs to be more than that. And they're trying to get him there, and every time they try to get him there, he gets hurt. Consistency, like I've said, is big for him, and getting him to that point. Will it happen this year? I don't know. But it needs to happen soon, and it needs to kind of grow into that. Anytime he could dunk, do it. But you need to know, okay, this is my responsibility on this set. I need to get to this spot and be able to kick to Jermaine, who's coming backside after a baseline cut for a 3 kind of thing. And he's just not, he's shown flashes of being there, but consistently he's just not there yet. He's pressing.
Dunk when you can, and when you can't,
pass.
Don't do it.
Pass.
Yeah. And when you can dunk, that is a lot wider set of opportunities for Keyshawn than other players. Take advantage of that. Just, I don't know, don't go overboard with it. But, if he's going to put up 15 and 10 for the rest of the season, I think Carolina probably feels pretty good about its chances to go 4-0 in these next 4 games.
Yeah.
Lonzo Frank, 15 minutes, misses only field goal, 1 point, 3 rebounds, probably minus a lot in this game.
What do you think?
Minus 13 in 15 minutes.
-5.
Just -5. I'm bad at guessing plus minus.
AJ Lawson was -20, though.
Phew.
I think that was the largest.
-20, not great. But for Frank, he's I guess with the exception of that first game that Minaya was out against Ole Miss, they started Levesque.
Yeah.
Since then, it's been Frank as a starter, and he just hasn't been good as a starter. He hasn't been good most of this year, but he really hasn't been good as the starter.
Yeah, and you need him to go out there and start because Levesque and McCreary are both really good coming off the bench. So you just need a guy to go in there and weather the storm a little bit for 4 or 5 minutes and put in the 2 guys after him. And you feel bad for a guy like Alonzo who's done so much to reshape his body and get to a level. But now it just comes, and Frank's talked about it, and I agree with him, that it's just about aggression now. It's about flipping the switch and saying, I'm 6'9", 6'10", I'm strong, and I can go up and finish. And sometimes he looks like he can do that, and sometimes he doesn't. But he's a really good offensive player. He just needs to be more aggressive, and he needs to be better on the defensive end.
I don't know if it's going to happen this year.
I
feel bad for him. I like what we saw from him last year. And in some ways,
he looks so much different this year. It's not baby fat. He's cut a lot of that off, and that's frustrating.
It's weird because one of the pleasant stories of this year, regardless of how it ends, has been the emergence of a couple of good young bigs in Levesque and McCreary that look like they're going to be, at least decent. They're going to be serviceable. I mean, you're not going to replace Mike Kosar, what he's doing this year, but you feel, pretty okay coming back with Levesque and McCreary next year. But the cost of that has been Frank was exciting as a freshman because you saw potential. He was a mess defensively, had an interesting offensive game. You saw potential there, and it feels like some of that development has been stymied because a lot of those, extra big man minutes have gone to Levesque and McCreary. I'm going to pull up his game log right now, but the amount of times that he's played like 3 minutes is
and that was
crazy.
with Minaya there too. With Minaya healthy, there's not a spot for him right now.
So he played 15 minutes against LSU on Saturday. He played 21 against Mississippi State, but 5 minutes against Tennessee, and 20 against Georgia, 21 against A&M. Played a minute against Ole Miss, 5 minutes against Arkansas, a minute against Auburn, 9 minutes against Texas A&M.
Since SEC play started, he's played in so they played, 14 SEC games? He's played over 15 minutes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Less than half.
Yeah, that's it. And like you said, it's kind of unfortunate because it feels like something's there. Now, if something were there and he were developing as much as we would have hoped or would like to see or think that he can, then maybe Levesque and McCreary wouldn't be stealing those minutes from him. But he seems like pretty entrenched at the starting role right now for South Carolina, and he needs to be better. Carolina didn't lose to LSU because he didn't have a better game. Because at this point, you're not counting on anything from him, so whatever he can give you now at this point is gravy. But
yeah, you need more.
I guess if we want to say something positive about Alonzo's game on Saturday, he didn't foul that much. Only 2 fouls. That's probably like a career low for him.
And 2 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, he continues to lead the team in offensive rebounding rate. Would be my guess because he did after the Mississippi State game. Probably didn't change. On Saturday. Levesque had a good game on the offensive boards, and we're going to get to him in just a minute when we start talking about some of those bench performances. He had 5 offensive rebounds, did Levesque, but I don't know if he was close enough to Frank to catch him in just one game.
He is 0.3 percentage points lower than Alonzo Frank for offense.
Oh, Levesque is? Wow. Okay. All right, so he's close. So that maybe flip-flop by the end of the season.
Yeah. Alonzo's at 14, and Wildens is at 13.7.
There you go. Catch him, Wildens. Mike Goatsar had his least goaty game in a while.
It looked like he was full Goatsar.
I know. Made his first 3 shots, and it was like an offensive rebound and a putback, and then 2 jumpers. Right, were his first 3 shots, I think.
Yeah.
And when he's got that jumper going, you're like, uh oh, this is like 18 or 22 for Mike.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
It looked like Goatsar, and just didn't get the ball in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Well, and got into a little bit of foul trouble in the first half.
Which is huge.
It was huge, but I really wanted to talk about this. I didn't write it down, but I'm glad that I remembered. A lot of people complaining about Frank Martin, because that's what people do whenever South Carolina loses any basketball game. They just assume that Frank Martin needs to be fired. Frank Martin doesn't know how to manage the game. He blah, 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 whatever. I think there are and have been perfectly valid reasons to criticize Frank Martin and some of the decisions that he's made this year. But saying that, he mismanaged the game or whatever on Saturday, Frank Martin did things that he is very uncomfortable doing.
Yeah, who the hell did he have to play with once Mike got it?
Well, not only that, but Mike picked up 2 fouls. He picked up his second foul with, I think, 12 minutes to go in the first half.
12:30, yeah.
And Mike came back in at like the 8 or 9 minute mark. Is that
he had to.
Yeah, but is that the first time?
He's played Jermaine on 3 fouls. I think he played Jermaine on 3 fouls against Mississippi State.
Okay.
But it's rare.
It is so rare. He never plays guys with 2 fouls in the first half. Like, if Mike picked up his second foul
at the 18-minute mark?
At the 18-minute mark, and this were the first game of SEC play, he would have sat the rest of the half.
Yeah.
Which I think is stupid. I hate that he does that.
But it's a pretty common practice in college basketball that I don't necessarily agree with. And
I mean, Frank seems to follow it militantly. I didn't even notice or remember Jermaine playing on 3 fouls. But when Mike came back in, I was like, what the? Like, Frank's pulling out all the stops here. He's playing a guy on 2 fouls. And credit to Mike, he didn't foul out. He still only played 29 minutes because he missed a stretch in the first half and then came out a little bit in the second half. He didn't foul out, which is good. Got to play as much as he possibly could have on those 4 fouls. But after the hot start, cooled off, made one of his next 6 shots, I think it was. He started 3 of 3. No, 3 of 3, and then made one of his next 7. Finished 4 of 10. Made both of his free throws, still only shot 2. 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Very consistent in terms of filling up all those other stats. And look, I mean, 10 points isn't much below what he averages. It just felt like the way that game started, it was going to be a Mike game. And
he just didn't get the ball.
Yeah.
And this was his lowest usage rate since the Texas A&M game earlier this month. He's only had, he had a 17% possession, however you want to calculate that. And the lowest, he's only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of those in SEC play. So half.
Below 17?
Below 20.
Oh, below 20. Oh, wow.
Yeah, 17 and below is even worse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
But normally it's 18 to 25 against Mississippi State, 18 against Tennessee, 21 against Georgia, 20 against Ole Miss, 25 against Missouri, 18 against Arkansas, 21, 22 against Tennessee and Florida. So they use him a lot, and they just didn't use him as much, statistically speaking, as they did. And it's just the guard play was very content with passing around the top and trying to go drive and get a floater. And they're driving the ball. And Frank even said that. It's like, they're doing what we're asking. They're driving, which is what we want our guards
like
to do.
80% of the way there.
But they get to the lane and they're afraid of contact and just heave a floater up.
Well, afraid of contact, and this came up on my local show. I had Wes Mitchell on with me actually yesterday because Eric Kimmery's still on a Disney cruise. I think this team is afraid, not of necessarily the contact, like I don't think they're soft, but no one on this team wants to go to the free throw line.
No.
And that is significant.
Yes.
When you are afraid to shoot free throws, you're afraid to get fouled, you're afraid to initiate that contact because, I don't know, I guess probably in the minds of these guys, they have a better chance throwing up a floater than going to the free throw line and getting, on average, a point. Yeah. If you shoot better than 50% on your floaters, you're probably better than you're going to do at the line. And that's significant. As much as you and I have agreed that you kind of are who you are in terms of free throw shooting, you're not going to overly change. You're not going to become a great free throw shooting team from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, even though Carolina's had some good performances here and there. And Frank Martin said earlier, that cost Carolina, in his estimation, 4 games. It's becoming even more significant now, not even because Carolina's not making them, but because it's changing the way that especially their guards are playing. And, I mean, that could be a really damning legacy of this team.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Tennessee game up in Knoxville where you miss 800 free throws, approximately. You miss 10 against LSU and lose by 6.
And how many more would you have gotten if Lawson and Kusnard and Kotsar and these guys finished their drives? Yeah. And Kotsar's been shooting free throws well. You said he's top 20, top 15 in free throw percentage. He made 2 of them. And you're right. Like Saturday had more to do with him just not getting the ball as much.
Yeah. Yeah, like those are the 3 guys you probably want on the line. You want AJ and Jermaine and Mike on the line shooting because those are the guys that have consistently, more than others, done it for you.
They took 38 shots from the field and 8 free throws.
Yeah. None from AJ Lawson. Kusnard had 6, went 5 of 6.
Yep.
And then
Kotsar had his 2. 38 shots to 8 field goal attempts.
Free throw attempts.
Yeah.
Not great.
No. That's like, I don't know, that's getting ratioed right there, like the basketball version. It's not good.
No.
Also not good, in terms of the backcourt, let's exclude Jair Bolden, who had a couple of garbage time buckets and, played fine. You texted me.
A couple, heat check. Hit a couple.
Right, midway through the first half, I think when Carolina was first closing that 24-17 deficit, you were like, yeah, Carolina can't win this game because it's going to be a great Jermaine game because it was clear that Jermaine wasn't firing on all cylinders, off the bat. And I was like, yeah, maybe this is going to be a Jair Bolden heat check game though because he hit a 3 and then came down on the other end. Carolina got a stop, and then he took a little one dribble pull up right inside the 3-point. It was really nice, a little cross, and then hit the jumper. And it's like, okay, if he's feeling himself, if he can go for 22.
You feel like that was that Texas A&M game where it's he hit 7 of 8 threes or 7 of 4 threes.
A Virginia game or something like that. Yeah. He finished with a 15, 6 of 9 from the floor, 3 of 6 from 3. So a fine game for him. But if we go AJ, Jermaine, Trey, TJ Moss, the 4 guys that probably handle the ball most. I mean, you want Mike to touch it a little bit more. It wasn't necessarily the case on Saturday. And that is a whopping 9, 10, 11 of 28, 35, 36. 11 of 36 from those 4 guys, including 0 of 1 from TJ Moss, who just takes his one token shot that he doesn't want to take every single game and misses it every single game.
Yeah.
11 of 36.
Just going to let that sit.
Mm-hmm.
Not great. And they didn't particularly look great either. Guard play hadn't been great the last 2 games, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we'll have an article up today about it on Gamecock Central. But it's just not been good. The defense has not been good. Guys are letting opponents get to their spots a little bit too much. And you're seeing what's wrong with it. I mean, I think that South Carolina's given up the 112 points per possession against LSU was the second worst this year. They gave up 115, or third worst. No, not even that. Wow. Wasn't as bad as I thought, but it's still pretty bad. They allowed almost 102 points per possession back-to-back games. Which is not what you want. 101.8 against Mississippi State, and 112
For a team that had solidified itself as one of the best teams defensively in the SEC, it's just, I think, kind of caught people by surprise. Probably this team and Frank Martin as well.
Yeah.
Now, it's tough, again, when you go up against LSU because they're really good offensively, so what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? In this case, the unstoppable force won. Mississippi State was a little bit more surprising. They were a good offensive team for sure, not on the level of LSU, but that even felt like, a little more, I don't want to say more preventable, because they shot a really high percentage, but they got high percentage looks, did Mississippi State. So I don't want to say like it didn't feel like a sustainable performance against Mississippi State, but it felt weird watching it for Carolina. That continued a little bit on Saturday. And I thought the defense of the guards was better Saturday for Carolina than it was last Wednesday against Mississippi State. Like, it felt like those guys were at least having to work for it a little bit more than Mississippi State's guards did.
Yeah, and it was just a matchup nightmare for South Carolina. And I mean, I've said it before that South Carolina does well when it's just one guard that you can slap into a pick and roll and say go. Mm-hmm. But when it's two that just get downhill, the Breein Tyrese and Devontae Schulers, the Stewarts and Weatherspoons, the Javonte Smart, Skylar Mays, it gets hard for South Carolina just because they don't have the guards and bigs at times to match up with that. And and Frank's kind of discussed it, when you throw them in a pick and roll and you got a rim protector like Wildens there, help defense is so important in Frank Martin's system. He's got to help up to affect the shot, and that allows backdoor cuts on the other side, which is why you've seen so many backdoor feed, dunk, drive, feed, dunk plays, because you have all these bigs helping up, and that leads to open space behind them.
Especially when you have multiple quality ball handlers for the other team. That's kind of been the killer for Carolina. Now, for AJ, second straight game that it certainly hasn't been a great game. It probably hasn't even been a good game, but
inefficient.
Yeah, 5 of 12, 3 of 8 from 3, 13 points. That's not great. But if AJ goes 5 of 12 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, and shoots 4 of 6 from the free throw line, he's at 17 points. That's kind of where he needs to be. Like, the missing free throws are significant.
Yeah, the aggression's the problem right with him.
Yeah, more than like even necessarily the efficiency. But other than that, 6 rebounds. I thought he was good. Really attacked the glass. Had 4 offensive rebounds.
2 turnovers though.
2 turnovers wasn't good, and still assists are just down this year. Did have a steal. I feel like even though the last couple games he hasn't played well, it doesn't feel like when he wasn't playing well earlier in the season. It feels like a more engaged kind of not playing well. It's just he's not playing well. It doesn't feel like he's gone again. It feels like he's there and just not playing that well.
Yeah, and I think that the problem is that people, and myself included, and I think the coaching staff expected a bigger jump from AJ. And I'm looking at his numbers right now. The stuff that really doesn't. He's got a better offensive rating. He's got a worse offensive rating in SEC play than he did last year. Everything's just so marginal. He's shooting better this year than he did last year, which is good. He rebounded the ball a little bit better last year. Rebounded the ball a little bit better last year. Passed the ball a little bit better last year. But then again, South Carolina has had it's this weird thing with AJ because he's shouldering a lot of the load, obviously, and he has to grow into that. But when you had a guy like Hassani who was shooting like 800% from 3 last year, 6th man of the year, it helps your assist numbers. The problem is that you expect him. So last year he shot in SEC play 52 free throws. This year,
wait, he shot 52 free throws in all of SEC play last year?
Yeah.
It's like less than 3 a game.
Yeah. This year he's shot 38 with 4 to go.
Jeez. He needs to be shooting 100 free throws in SEC play. He needs to be shooting 5 or 6.
Yeah, absolutely. I
didn't realize the number was that low. That's crazy.
But the problem is that his fouls, he's really good about not committing fouls. Only 2.9 per 40, which is good. His fouls drawn per 40 in SEC. So his fouls drawn per 40 is top 10% in college basketball.
Wow.
On the season. 4.5 this year, 4.6 last year. In conference play, it's a little bit less this year, 3.6 to 3.8. The problem is that it's all pretty marginal, but you'd expect those numbers to have taken a big jump.
Right.
And that's the problem.
It's the classic, you're either getting better or you're worse. I always cite Tommy Callahan. I don't know if you're a fan of the movie Tommy Boy.
Yeah.
But there's just I don't know if other people think it's funny or if it's just a throwaway line, but he's like, you're either growing or you're dying. There ain't no third direction. And for AJ, it feels like, well, we know he's not growing. And if you are someone that believes in that philosophy, he's not staying the same. He's dying because he's supposed to be improving. And I think that's why it's disappointing. But at least for me watching the game, like I said, it looks different. It feels different. There's a level of engagement. Defensively, he hasn't been great the last couple games, but he's at least been he's been more locked in.
He's been your second or third best player.
He's
in every
trying.
game.
He's not falling asleep. There's sometimes when he still gets beat off the dribble. I mean, there was one play. I don't remember if it was Smart or Mays that was driving on him in the first half, and he's playing it pretty well. And whoever it was for LSU just had a beautiful spin move inside, goes into the lane, and gets fouled. And it's like, yeah. I mean, AJ was his defender there, led to a foul. I don't even think AJ was the one that committed the foul. I think it was Mike or somebody. It doesn't matter. Point is, like, yeah, that was a damn good move. And even, was it Kennedy? Andy Kennedy calling the game, maybe? I think it was Andy Kennedy. And
was calling.
It was Beth Mowins and Andy Kennedy calling the game. And Andy was like, yeah, you never spin inside the lane. So it's like, if AJ's playing him to the outside, you can't fault him for that because you don't spin,
probably in the game plan,
spin into the lane. Like, that's a bad idea. That's the game plan. You want to force him to the middle because that's where your help defense is.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's stuff like that. It's like, yeah, he got beat on that play, but why did he get beat?
Happens.
He was doing the right thing.
End of the day, shit happens.
And you're playing a really good team with really good basketball players that are going to do stuff like that. So I didn't think it was an egregiously bad defensive performance. I still always like to see AJ engaged on the boards because I feel like, as much as anything, that's kind of a bellwether. Like, if he's just sitting back and letting the game come to him, you know that it's not going to be good. But when he's attacking the glass, especially the offensive glass, when he's grabbing defensive rebounds and trying to get out in transition, that's when you're like, okay, AJ's there. And he was still doing that. He just wasn't getting all the way to the rim, and some of his shots weren't falling. I mean, he finished 3 of 8. One of those threes was kind of again, not garbage time, but towards the end of the game, 2 of 7 feels a lot worse than 3 of 8. But it still feels like he's there and he's close, just not quite there.
Yeah. And, I mean, you pretty much said it well. I mean, it happens, He's engaged. Sometimes he's going up against, he really didn't get the Skylar Mays treatment, but he got Javonte Smart, who is a 2-ish. This is his first full year starting. Let me read you Javonte Smart's KenPom page. 15th in the SEC in offensive rating. 14th in effective field goal percentage, 18th in true shooting percentage, 18th in assist rate, 3rd in fouls committed per game, 13th in free throw percentage, and 11th in 3-point percentage.
So he's a scrub.
Yeah. Oh, terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Awful.
Awful.
That's pretty
good.
insane.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that Will Wade paid as much for him as he did.
No comment.
Hey, I'd pay that much for a guy like that. That was the guy involved in the scandal, right? It was Smart. In the wiretap scandal, I think it was him.
Is that the strong ass offer?
Yeah, I think so. I thought that was Smart.
I give Chris Wellbaum a lot of credit because every tweet from our GC Game Day account included the word strong ass.
Good. I missed that. That's great, though.
Yeah. So I'll read. I mean, they were just like strong ass comeback from this, strong ass dunk. Oh, it was gorgeous. Man, if y'all aren't watching the game on TV or listening to it on 107.5, and even if you are, you should still follow along with the game day updates. I'm sitting in Williams-Brice during football games, like watching the game and just reading the updates because they're hilarious. And that's why, because I remember I had to ask you about it a couple weeks ago who did it, because I've had so many people ask me, because they know I do the podcast with you and with Wes and with Chris and with Will Helms, and they're like, who runs the updates? And I was like, I don't know, but that dude is freaking fantastic. So that's awesome.
Chris Wellbaum.
I wish I was half as funny.
He does like barbecue. Chris Gillespie doesn't like barbecue.
Yeah, Chris Gillespie doesn't.
The photographer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Direct all of your ire.
He's a Castle Grayskull.
Yeah. Direct all of your ire to him and give him a lot of crap for the taco place not being closed.
What taco place?
Because when we were at A&M, I really wanted Texas barbecue.
Okay. Makes sense.
So I tell the story, and I give him shit for this all the time. My fiance had a friend who interned at Texas A&M one summer. So I texted her and was like, listen, I'm going to A&M. I need all your great barbecue spots. Send them to me, and we'll probably hit 1 or 2 while we're there. So she sent me this big list. I was like, I'm on the flight, like giddy about going. We touched down late.
Did y'all fly to Houston? Or did y'all fly
flying to Houston.
Yeah. So it wasn't Blood Brothers, was it?
No.
Okay. That's where we went.
It was late. So we got in really, really late. had a very, very interesting drive from Houston to College Station at like 1 a.m. So
it's kind of a weird drive.
Yeah. We stopped at a gas station with bulletproof glass.
Nice.
On the windows to buy a phone charger and get some cash.
Was that near that
tolls.
Christmas town?
No, that was before the Christmas town.
Okay. That's bizarre.
I have a bunch of road trip stories with Chris because we stopped at a buck. I mean, it is awesome.
I need to write a book or do a podcast.
I would enjoy sitting down with Chris Gillespie and just reminiscing about
I would listen to that. Every single week, y'all need to do a Tales from the Road.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about this after
There are
the pod.
plenty of stories. But so, long story short, Saturday was the only day we could eat, and he was like, I really don't like barbecue. Can we do something else? Sure. I was pretty bummed about it, and I've told him that since then. I was pretty bummed. So after the game, I also had some taco places she sent me. So I was like, okay, late night tacos after a game, and we're driving past it. There's a line out the door.
Oh, nice.
I would have gone. I would have sat there in line. It's a taco place. All you do is slap meat and cheese and you move on.
Mm-hmm.
He's driving past it. He's driving the rental car, and he goes, looks closed, and just keeps going.
No.
And I'm like, and so we ended up stopping at like some gas station to pick up like, a drink and like a chips and eat in the room because we were going to go to Whataburger, and that line was wrapped like 2 times around the building.
Looks closed.
Yeah. And we drove
awesome.
past. I was like, no. But
that's really disappointing. So next time.
So I've been to A&M since then, and I've gotten my barbecue and I've gotten their tacos.
Good. I was going to say, is Carolina going there for baseball this year? I can't remember off the top of my head, but
it went a couple years ago.
Okay, all right. Well,
so
yeah, I'm glad you got your fix anyway.
Best barbecue I've ever had.
Strong ass Will Wade, Javonte Smart,
strong
AJ
ass
Lawson.
Strong ass barbecue. But continue.
AJ, not bad, not
great. Middle of the road.
Yeah,
you want him to
close.
You want him.
He needs to be better.
Yeah.
But he has been worse, so I guess it's good that he's not worse.
Yes.
Jermaine led the team in minutes, 37 minutes, but 4 of 16, 2 of 6 from 3. He made 5 of his 6 free throws, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, a block, just 2 turnovers, 4 fouls, 15 points. Inefficient. He got to the free throw line 6 times, which is second most on the team, and should have gotten there more. He should have had another game where he attempted 12 free throws. It wasn't there. It feels like maybe he has hit or is hitting a little bit of a freshman wall, which we see happen with young players a lot. Now, I get it. He's a redshirt freshman, but this is his first season playing college basketball.
And teams are game planning for him a little bit more.
Yeah. Now, I guess you give him credit. He's still getting to his 15, 16, 17 points a game, but I don't know. Freshman wall?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's just him adjusting to how teams are going to play him now because they have a good chunk. He's been in the starting lineup now for probably, 13 or 11 games, 10, 11 games.
Yeah, that's right, because it wasn't Florida, it wasn't Tennessee. They made the switch.
So 12 games. That was his 12th game.
Right.
As your starting point guard. Teams now have a good enough sample size on how they run the offense with him. So now he's gotten to play his game, and now it's about adjusting. Still playing his game, but now adjusting to, okay, well, when I try to go left or right, this team defends me this way with help this way,
right.
And I got to figure out ways around that.
Jermaine, what's your counterpunch?
Exactly.
You had a good first punch. Yeah. What's your counterpunch?
Exactly.
That's what Carolina's looking for now. I don't know if he can find it. I don't know if that's maybe that's why people hit the freshman year wall or the rookie wall in professional sports.
Yeah.
Because you got your one thing, and then people figure it out, and then it takes you a little bit of more time to develop your counterpunch.
Yeah. And you think about it too, man. Like, high school playoffs are going on right now. And South Carolina still got 4 regular season games left.
Yeah, this is when he's used to
not playing
and having played less and less intense basketball.
Yeah. It's an emotional drain. It happens.
An emotional drain, a physical drain. The travel's been weird. And for Carolina, I was thinking it's kind of nice because since SEC play started, it's been home away, home away, home away, home away, home away. Except for with 2 exceptions. There were 2 back-to-back road games.
A&M and Ole Miss.
Right, and then now there's back-to-back home games.
No, not A&M and Ole Miss. Auburn and Texas A&M.
Sure, earlier in the season. Yeah, back-to-back road games. And now back-to-back home games with LSU and Georgia, and then
you go back to home away, home away, home away.
Oh, yeah, wait.
So there's back-to-back home games, LSU and Georgia.
Oh, yeah, they're Georgia, at Bama, home Mississippi State, and then at Bama. Right. I keep flipping those. But yeah, so in some ways, I don't know why I feel like that's nice. Probably just because there's a pattern, and my brain likes patterns. But on the other hand, that's probably been a little bit harder that they haven't been able to just have like a homestand. It's been a lot of travel, a lot of in and out.
The good thing, too, is that it's Wednesday it all but on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
But like that makes it really hard for the Saturday games because you could get back late Wednesday, and then you got to practice Thursday, then you got to practice Friday, and then you got a game Saturday. So, is what it is. It's either shorter rest on the back end after a Saturday game or a longer rest after the Saturday game, kind of thing. But the good thing is South Carolina's kept their off day, so it's not like the off day is switching week to week. They get Sunday off, practice Monday, Tuesday, play Wednesday, practice Thursday, Friday, play Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same schedule. It's just a matter of
right.
how exhausted your body is and where you've traveled to.
And it's going to be a slight change-up for a really important game, unfortunately. I guess not this midweek game, but next midweek game when you play Mississippi State on a Tuesday, one less day against the team that already beat you. Now you get that at home.
But you're coming off the road.
But you're coming off the road. Right. Now, I guess they'll probably still get back pretty late from...
I'll probably get back about 3 a.m.
Yeah, from Alabama.
Because it's an 8:30 tip.
But they don't have to go to school on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yay! Yay, no school on Sunday.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's finish up talking about this LSU game. Wilden Zivek, I thought, had a pretty good game.
Yeah.
15 minutes, 5 points, 8 rebounds, 5 of them offensive. He looks promising. He continues to show like a little bit of improvement. He still looks good for a freshman. The thing that impresses me about him is he does a really good job of knowing where to be.
Yeah.
I think we talk about it more with guards in terms of like feel for the game because you can look at playmaking and things like that. But Wilden's, even when he's not grabbing a rebound, he's in a position to get the rebound. And it's just a matter of somebody either beating him to it, being in better position. But he seems to always know where the ball's going. And there was even one. I thought he had more foul. He only had 1 foul, which is great. Excellent job, Wilden's, for a guy that just a couple weeks ago tied the record for fastest fouling out ever for a South Carolina player with Chris Silva. Yeah, 8 minutes and 5 fouls. So credit to him for not fouling. I felt like there were more instances where he was in a position for a rebound and grabbed it, but they called him for a foul. I guess that just happened one time for like an over the back. But he's got a really good rebounding sense. Now his offensive game still has a long way to go.
Yeah.
Defensively in terms of he's got the body to be a pretty decent rim protector. He's just got to work on staying vertical when he's going up to contest shots. But the pieces are still there, and I thought this was one of the better games that he's had in a couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, and you're starting to see the signs kind of click for him a little bit, especially he's a freshman playing against guys that are bigger than him, guys that have played more than him, and he's holding his own or treading water. So that's good. You want that from Wilden's. And if he could continue that, you feel good about sliding him into potentially the starting 5 spot next year. Who knows? So we'll see. I like his game a lot. I liked it when he committed. So we'll see.
Good game, Wilden's. Jalen came back. He was available.
Getting him back for the Georgia game.
6 minutes, no points. Did grab a couple of rebounds.
He was cleared late.
Yeah, I don't
late.
remember seeing him on. I watched the game Saturday night. I didn't go to the game. My dad's band had a concert, so I went to that and then caught a little bit of the first half on the radio. Watched the game when I got home and watched it again on Monday. And I can't tell you a single thing that Wilden's did. I don't remember him being in the game.
Did.
Huh? Yeah, sorry. I don't remember a single thing that Jalen McCurry did on Saturday.
No, and it was just one of those things where he probably didn't. Frank Martin said he got cleared right before the LSU game, the day of. So it's like, yeah, you throw him in there and hope for the best, but he didn't practice. He probably knows the game plan, but didn't take any mental, he took some mental reps, but that can only help you so much. So getting him back, full day of practice Monday, full day of practice Tuesday, ready for this game, should be back to what you've grown to expect from a guy like Jalen, which is going to be good for South Carolina, trying to fill that void. We've talked about it a lot with Minaya, obviously out.
Talked about the guards a little bit. Jair, fine, cool shot, fading, off balance to his left, jumping like half turnaround, like ridiculous, whatever shot. And then Trey Hannibal, not great, still turns the ball over too much, and all of his turnovers feel avoidable, which is the tough part. It's not like, that was like almost a really good play. Like, I see what you're doing there. Keep doing that. Like, that's a productive turnover. It's like, you just threw the ball out of bounds because you thought someone was coming up to grab the ball and he didn't. So, yeah, not a great game for him. 2 of 7 shooting, and then TJ Moss, 2 minutes, low impact, just in general.
Yeah.
But you wrote a good piece about Trey Hannibal being the number 2.
He is.
The clear-cut number 2 for Carolina. We were hoping that would happen, and it has. And I think he's kind of experiencing a similar thing to Jermaine right now, where it's a little bit of a freshman wall.
And he falls into hero ball a lot, which that was kind of his offensive game at Hartsville, and needed to be because he was the best player on the court. it's just getting out of that, breaking out of that mold and fitting more into the offense. And when he does that, he's gonna be a really, really good player.
Anything else about LSU?
Missed opportunity. LSU's a good team. Still got a lot to play for.
Yeah, missed opportunity. I don't know. I mean,
You
Carolina could have won that game if they played better, but
yeah, and you missed a chance for a quad one win.
Yeah,
that's probably the part that pisses fans off, pisses Frank off.
But you still have a chance.
Yeah,
assuming Alabama kind of holds up their end of the bargain down the stretch.
It's very it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting there and South Carolina is going to win their next 20 games by 4 games by 20 points, but it's doable. There's a chance. Slim, but there's a chance.
Georgia Part 2 on Wednesday. 75-60.
Did you just pause to let that Wednesday, the weird Wednesday pronunciation?
Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to make fun of me for saying it like that.
I mean, I can if you want me to.
Yeah, you should. Wednesday. That's how we spell it. Wednesday. Wednesday.
Hump day.
75-59 was the first time Carolina played Georgia. It wasn't even that close. Hump day.
Please listen to this on Wednesday.
Yeah, please listen to this on Wednesday.
But Georgia, playing better.
They beat Auburn.
Yeah. South Carolina didn't do
Auburn's
that.
weird.
Yeah.
They started the season.
SEC's weird.
Auburn, what did they start? 18-0?
Yeah.
15-0, something like that. And then they lost their first 2 games of conference play. And then they went on a tear and won 9 in a row. And then they lost 2 in a row again. And then they've, I think, won all their games since that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess they've only played 1 game since then because they lost to Georgia and then they lost to.
They beat Tennessee.
Right. And then they beat Tennessee.
17 point down.
They beat Tennessee this past weekend, and then before that, they lost 2 in a row.
Mm-hmm. They've had 4 overtime wins.
Yeah, I know. And they've played 5 overtime games.
5 overtime wins.
They've won all 5 of their overtime games? That's ridiculous. Auburn's crazy.
That's LSU like last year.
Yeah.
It's like they got the luckiest bounces.
Georgia winning those 2 games in SEC play with Anthony Edwards scoring fewer than 20 points maybe scares you a little bit if you're a Carolina fan because the rest of the team is sort of figuring out more how to play with Edwards rather than just saying, well, if Anthony Edwards doesn't have 32 and 17 tonight, I guess we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Not great for Carolina, but it all still does start with keeping Anthony Edwards in check. They did a good job of it last time, and just based on the eye test, it didn't feel like they had to do too much unconventional stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they just they defended him straight up. They made a really concerted effort to keep the ball out of his hands. Yeah, I mean, they denied a lot, but it still feels like Frank will have at least 1 or 2 things up his sleeve if Anthony Edwards starts the game hot, which, I mean, has you feeling pretty good. And Carolina's just a better team than Georgia, even though they're not playing great right now.
Yeah, and Frank talked about it on Monday during his press conference that they're going to get the best punch possible from Anthony Edwards. He's playing pretty good right now, has played them before, and he knows that he's just going to come out essentially pissed off, kind of is the vibe that I got. Keeping the ball out of his hands. Frank Martin talked about the ball seems to get in his hands a little bit earlier in the possession now, just to kind of initiate. Do you know what his usage rate is?
Anthony Edwards for the season, his usage rate?
A lot. Mason Jones is first in the SEC at 31.4.
Okay, I was going to guess like 28.
Anthony Edwards is 30.9. Tied for second.
Wow.
With Bree and Tyree.
So,
Jermaine Couisnard actually 7th, 27.2.
The season that Russell Westbrook won the MVP, controversially, and he averaged a triple-double, his usage rate was like 40%, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a lot. That's a lot of possessions.
But if you could limit him and deny him the ball, that it just throws their offense for a freaking funk, and they don't know what to do when Anthony doesn't have the ball.
Yeah, so I mean, even if he's not, like you're saying, even if he's not scoring a lot or shooting a ton, he's still using a lot of those possessions. And let me pull up this other Georgia-Carolina game because Georgia in that game took 60. That was Carolina took 65 shots. Georgia took 52 shots.
Yeah.
Edwards took 13 of them. So that's 25% of their shots. And then he only had 1 assist. And I don't know how. Obviously, there's nothing in the box score that indicates how many of his passes led to shots that missed and things like that. But that was the difference. And it was also like early enough. Carolina was able to keep him out of it. They were able to build a lead, so it didn't really matter if he was able to get his later in the game.
They held him a little bit.
I think he had 8 in the first half, 8 in the second half, maybe. Like it was a pretty even distribution. But if you can do that early and build a huge lead, which is what Carolina did, and you don't overly have to. I mean, he can get his by the end of the game if you have a 20-point lead at halftime, which is what Carolina did in the first game.
Yeah, and Georgia actually outscored them in the second half.
Yeah, that's right. 38-20 at half, and then 39-37 in the second half.
Yeah, by 2. But, yeah, limit him. It's going to be easier said than done like it was the first time, but I don't think he's going to go 4 for 13 again. I think you're going to get a better punch from him this time around.
I think so, too. I mean, law of averages says he's going to have certainly a better game than he normally does. Now, I guess what's good is even the first time you played Georgia, you didn't have Justin Minaya, and people were worried about what that matchup was going to look like. I certainly worried about that. So it's not like Carolina limited him and then now has different personnel. And I think Frank had a solid game. That game he played 20 minutes, grabbed 9 rebounds. So if Frank's not playing well, maybe that makes a little bit of a difference, even though Frank's not handling that responsibility defensively. Mike Kotsar had a fine game. I said when was the last time that he had a game as un-Kotsar-like as he did against LSU? It may have been that Georgia game. He had 11 points, 5 rebounds, only 1 personal foul, but only played 29 minutes in that game. I don't even remember
5 for 12
why.
in the field.
Yeah, why didn't he play more in that game?
I don't know. But Georgia's not that tall of a team.
Right.
So it kind of helps that you have the size advantage by far. So
Carolina out-rebounded Georgia by 12.
Use
6
that
on
to
the
your
offensive
advantage.
glass. Yeah. Take advantage
Use your
of that.
athleticism. Georgia's not a very tall team. South Carolina has 2 inches on them on average. So,
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
You won by 16. It could have been more. You played a fine game, not an outrageous game. You shot 44% from the field, which is about your average.
Consistent.
35% from 3, which is above average for you, and 57% from the free throw line, which is a little bit below average. By the way, I looked it up yesterday. Do you know how many teams are worse than Carolina in the entire country at shooting free throws?
5.
It's exactly 5. Do you know who the 5 are?
Maryland Eastern Shore was one of them.
They're not anymore.
Okay. I'm going to look it up.
There's one other Power 6 team that's in there.
Oh, no. Only 4.
Only 4?
Only
I saw
4 now.
Nebraska, North Carolina A&T.
So they're 349
Arkansas, Pine
now.
Bluff?
So they're 349 now.
Mm-hmm.
If Ken Palm will load. 349 now.
I think it was St. Louis, Nebraska, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and North Carolina A&T, and I thought there was one more yesterday, but maybe that's updated.
That's it. It's updated.
Okay.
Manhattan moved ahead of them in Eastern.
You're worse at shooting free throws than Manhattan.
You are one of two teams in the Power 6, kind of the Big East, that are bottom 5.
Yikes. So
Winthrop, though, Winthrop not too far ahead of them.
Oh, man.
The Eagles.
So if Carolina shoots free throws well for the rest of the season, maybe they won't be the worst free throw shooting team in the state of South Carolina or the country, but I won't hold my breath.
My brother goes to Winthrop, so I have a weird soft spot in my heart for.
Yeah, well, I went to Furman. My brother goes to Wofford, so I'm all about South Carolina schools.
Yeah, go Palmetto State.
Palmetto State something. Anyway, Carolina, similar game plan. Do what you did the first time against Georgia. I don't know if that will be as easy. Anthony Edwards. I'm not going to say the difference in the game going Carolina's way and not was Anthony Edwards missing shots early, but the difference between it being as comfortable as it was and not could have just been Anthony Edwards missing a couple, 2 threes in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah, you got to make him miss early, get him out of his game.
And for Edwards, it was just a matter of him missing those shots. It wasn't like Carolina made him work for it when he got the ball, but there were 1 or 2 opportunities that I remember specifically off the top of my head where he had pretty open looks and just missed them. And if he hits those, that's when you have to worry about, instead of him scoring 16 or 18, you have to worry about
25.
him scoring 25, 28, 30, something like that. I expect a similar game plan. Again, I'm encouraged because it doesn't feel like Frank Martin had to throw the kitchen sink at him last time. So if you need to do that this time, maybe you can do that. But Carolina has to win. They absolutely have to win. If they lose this game, then we're just going to do the eulogy for this season on the next podcast.
And talk about the NIT.
And talk about the NIT, because I guess that'll still be on the table for Carolina. But anything else in terms of Georgia preview? Now that we're doing some of these games for the second time, it's like I feel like a little bit less to say.
Do what you did. Knock down shots. Guard, deny Anthony Edwards' ball.
Guards, pick it back up, hopefully. Keyshawn Bryant, keep doing what you're doing. Goats are... that's the other thing. When you go back to LSU, and it wasn't exactly a 6-point margin, but the final score says it was a 6-point margin. Mike Kotsar had an underwhelming kind of game. Jermaine had an inefficient kind of game. AJ was a little bit underwhelming. Keyshawn was the only guy that gave you kind of what you expected or what you needed to get from him. So that's a lot of important players having less than stellar games in a game that maybe wasn't winnable but could have been closer than it was. If Carolina plays like they did against LSU, which is not great, it's still probably enough to beat Georgia.
Yeah, I would think so. You want to do reverse jinxes now? All I heard you talking a bunch of crap to me to Wes and Chris on the podcast about me not understanding the countdown.
No, so I know you understand it, but I thought it was kind of like a fun bit that we did because the first time we did it, we screwed it up.
No. We didn't do anything. I screwed it up.
Well, but I didn't tell you because, I mean, it's like...
It's like rock, paper, scissors.
Well, it's like, do you put peanut butter and jelly on the same side? Do you put it on different bread? It's just
I'm not
about
a jelly
how
guy.
you were raised.
I'm a peanut butter and honey guy.
So I've been doing a little more peanut butter and honey lately just because...
Really good.
Like less processed sugar. I think your body like processes it the same way, but my girlfriend really likes honey, so it's a lot of
big
peanut butter and honey. So
I'm a very picky eater, so...
Are you?
Oh, horribly picky.
Oh, that's really disappointing.
Horribly.
I like you
eater.
3% less now.
Yeah, well, like it's just one of those things where like my family is big picky eater fans.
Really?
But
my sister's the only one that's a picky eater, and we tease her relentlessly about it. So
I'm better. My fiance, I'll give her a lot of credit that she's kind of helped me break out of that mold a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm better than I was. Still not great, but I'm better than I was, and I'm not the pickiest eater in my family.
Good. That's important. You have to have somebody to make fun of. I may have already told the story in the podcast, so I apologize if it's redundant. Or maybe I said this on my local show. Maybe I said it on another Carolina podcast. I said this somewhere recently. I do talk too much. And I think people on Gamecock Central, on the forums anyway, are sick of hearing my voice, but I'll tell the story again. I used to not like olives, and I don't like not liking things. I hate being picky. So I went to the store, and I bought a jar of olives, and I just ate them, hating them, until I did not hate them. And now I don't dislike olives. And I, in fact, like them. Which I think means I'm a sociopath.
I mean, yeah. My roommate, his mom came down from, she's, I mean, Italian is Italian.
Yeah, they're from Syracuse, right?
No, this is from Mass.
Dang it. You do have a roommate from Syracuse.
I have two roommates, and yeah, one's from Syracuse, one's from Massachusetts.
All right, I'm figuring it out.
But his mom is like, if she's not Italian, she's pretty damn close. But she cooks constantly when she comes down. It's awesome. So she was making dinner one night for us in our kitchen, which was, again, I love when they come to visit because they just bring in food and food and food.
That's wonderful.
But she was making chicken piccata. I want to say
oh, yum.
Oh,
yeah.
Love chicken piccata. But she was like, I'm going to put olives in. Is that okay? And I was like, I really don't like olives. She goes, try one. She made me try an olive. And it was like one of the more disgusting things I've ever had.
Oh, really? Black olive, green olive?
Olive.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just not an olive fan.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't like slimy.
Polarizing food.
I don't like slimy foods as much. I'm a very like set in my ways eater. I'm getting better, but I'm very like, I like chicken wings, but I don't eat chicken wings.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about that early on in the podcast.
Work for my food.
But you know what? I appreciate that you're getting better, only if you feel like you need to. But the reality is, the older we get, the more set in our ways we get. So just embrace it. Just embrace the things that you like, and just eat them.
Yeah.
So anyway,
reverse
all
jinxes.
that to say, I wasn't making fun of you. I thought it was a bit. I don't do it to make fun of you, where I explain it every time.
Are we just going to lean into the bit now?
Yeah, well, that's what I've been doing.
Okay,
I feel bad that you thought I've been.
Well, no,
being
I was like, like Pearson's like throwing me out of the bus. So
no,
Chris
no. I really thought it was a bit because the first time we messed it up, and then the second time you asked for clarification, and I was like, okay, this is funny. We're just going to explain this every time as if we've never done it before. So we're going to go 3, 2, 1, and then go. Actually, I don't know who I'm going to pick yet.
I got mine.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Jermaine
AJ Lawson. Okay, we're going for the backcourt combo.
Yeah.
AJ, you're going up against a probable number 1 overall pick. Do your thing and prove that you belong to even be in the G League next year. Because right now, I don't believe you belong in the G League next year.
Jermaine, you were really, really inefficient against LSU. You need to be better. You will be better because Georgia's a terrible defensive team. Then again, LSU was. Georgia's not a very good defensive team, and you're going to be guarding Anthony Edwards. This is your time to shine and show why you are one of the better freshman guards in the SEC.
He did a good job the first time.
Yeah.
He had a fine game offensively, not super efficient, 5 of 13, but he made half of his threes. He made his free throw, 3 rebounds, 4 assists.
But he guarded
14
Anthony
points,
Edwards.
But he guarded Anthony Edwards. And when you score 14 points, you can be forgiven for being a little bit inefficient.
And playing really great defense.
While putting in really good work on the other side. Now, what was also interesting about that matchup is, and sort of as anticipated, I think maybe, at least in terms of the man, I think I expected to see a little more zone against Georgia last time. Carolina pretty much played him straight up man like the whole game, which surprised me.
But they threw everybody at him.
They threw right, yeah. I mean, Keyshawn had some possessions on him and did a nice job. Trey Hannibal. Mike even guarded him for 1 or 2 possessions. I guess Jermaine was probably on him for like 60% of the possessions, though, and did a pretty good job. But, I mean, everybody...
4 or 5 different guys had at least one possession on him.
And, I mean, that's probably the right way to do it, because if you ask one guy to do it, he's going to be dead by halftime. He's not going to be able to give you anything, because that's so taxing. So kind of like switching guys off and keeping fresh legs on him is a good idea. I want to see Jalen on him, too.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And the best part was they didn't... It wasn't like Jermaine Kustar went 60% and then... backed off in the
right, yeah, it was like
the game.
3 here, 1 there, 3 here, 1 there, 2 there, 1 there, 1 there. Yeah. It was good.
It was really good.
Anyway, all right, so that is tomorrow at what time o'clock?
Wednesday.
6:30. Oh, Wednesday. Yeah, sorry, we're recording this on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
That game is going to be Wednesday at 6:30, which is great because last week's midweek game was at 9. So everybody can get to bed a little bit earlier.
Gorgeous. This
time around. So thank you all for listening. Rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. Read Collyn Taylor on Gamecock Central. Follow him on Twitter at Collyn Taylor with a Y. Plug your piece again. You got coming Tuesday afternoon as well?
Yeah, about the defensive side of things. Just how bad they've been defensively this week and why they need to pick it up. And we have some recruiting stuff down the pipeline as well.
Very good. Yeah, spring football practice starts on Wednesday. Will Muschamp press conference Tuesday at 11 o'clock. By the time you hear this, that will have already happened. So Wes and Chris and I will be back on another Carolina podcast tomorrow to discuss some early thoughts on the spring. So again, rate, review, subscribe to everything on the Gamecock Central Podcast Network. Collyn and I will talk to you on Thursday.